Hello, it is Bones, and I'm here to talk to you about writing comics, and I'm going to be answering a question I got in my previous video about how do you weave together multiple plot lines. And it was specifically talking about kind of the middle of the plot, because I often talk about how when you're writing multiple plot lines, you want to bring major turning points, pinch points, large plot events. You want to line those up together to make very impactful scenes. You want to bring all your characters together, whether that is through kind of parallelism or if they're like actually physically getting together. But like on the scene to scene basis, the middle parts, the meat between the muscle is meat, but you know what I mean, right? How do you bring all of that together? And the answer is it has a lot to do with pacing. So when I sit down to write multiple plot lines and the characters don't interact, I think you don't need to worry too much scene to scene how things are going to line up and where to place things. Try to write strong plot arcs on their own and worry about where they come together, because when it comes to moving around plot points, it really is very vibes based and it tends to be very modular. So if you have a bunch of scenes that are connected to one plot line and then you have a bunch of scenes connected to another plot line, it's easy to like move them and shift them in a way that creates good pacing, and you don't have to worry too much about writing them all joined up together from the beginning. So a lot of the times, like, I'll write a story. This happened recently with Avo, where I wrote the entire plot and then I was like, I really need to flesh out this one character more. I want to give her a plot line. So I sat down and I wrote her entire plot line from start to finish, every scene that would be in it, because the characters didn't end up really interacting much. I wrote the scenes where they did interact, but I ended up rewriting them to fit in with the newly added scenes in a later point. But the point that I'm getting at is that when you have disparate scenes like this, like, don't worry while you're actually writing your script where they all go, because it is very much something that can exist within the editing of your story. It is one of the most changeable things. And I say that as someone who miscolored one of my sets of pages so that it couldn't really fit where it was initially supposed to go, but I just shifted the scene into a different spot and it worked out fine. A lot of the time there are multiple answers to where you can put a scene where it will still work. So what are some like keys to think about when you do actually sit down and shift everything into like a set place? The first thing that I would consider is chronology. Now, not every story needs to be chronological. You can have a plot line that is happening in the past. You can have things that aren't based on chronology at all. Like, you can fudge it a bit. Like, you can do what makes it more interesting. But chronology can be something that you consider when you are putting your plots together. So a lot of the times for 9 Point specifically, I have a very set chronology based approach to it. I like that the time is around the same time in every point in the plot line. You don't have to do this. You could be telling the same story that's going on in 9 Point and they could be months off and you can still intercut between them, but that is something that I wanted to do. Similarly to chronology, in the sense that it is a self-imposed thing that you can decide for the story, you can have sections where you focus on one set of characters. You might do like a chapter based system where it's like chapter 1 we fixate on this character, chapter 2 is about this character, chapter 3 is about this character, and then you swap in between one after the other. That is a valid format. It's a much more structured format, and you can work within each plot line so that the pace matches up with that plot structure, with that story structure, but that is something that you can do. That is similar to chronology, where it is something that you want to impose, but you have to like think about these things and decide them up front if this is how you're going to control your story or not. Outside of like those imposed structures that, you know, have their benefits and drawbacks, when I'm putting scenes together, when I'm splicing them together, another thing is about context and what can add to other scenes. So let's say you have mages, they're like magic users, and they're interacting together, and then you have another scene where you have other characters and it's in a different plot line, but they're going to be using magic casually and it's not really part of the story. You can use other plot lines to inform information about world building, information about character, just information in general. You can use that information gathering in like one plot line to give readers the ability to read another plot line where they won't be discussing it as much. So maybe you have like people who are learning magic, and then you have experts in magic who are dealing with larger plot ramifications. And we move from one scene to the other because this is like an information building. And sometimes what's occurring in your other plots can inform what readers know in order to understand the other plots in your story. It is very helpful to use it like that. And then the next thing that you need to consider is pacing, because the benefit of having multiple plot lines going and being able to like go for a long time in one or a short time in another, the benefit of having that is you get a lot more control over the pace and emotional pace. I think the mood of your story, it gives you so much more opportunity to pick and choose where you're going to go. So if you have like a very rough scene that's very emotionally charged, you can either move forward to another emotionally charged scene, or you can move to like a softer scene to create like some contrast, or you can like accentuate by adding more tension, because like not all of your plots, like the goal would be when you're having very charged scenes is to have all of your plots in some sort of like tense moment. And tense doesn't always mean like ultimate tension. It can be like emotional tension in the same way. I'm thinking about like some characters are like in a battle, and then you cut to some other characters that are like stuck together. I'm kind of thinking of like Avatar: Last Airbender. Like I'm always thinking about that. I think there's like the big battle, and there's also like Zuko and Katara. They're together. And that is like in terms of action, you can have like large amounts of action occurring, but you can also have like a very big, impactful emotional plot going, right? Where there's similar levels of height in terms of like their actual plot lines, but they're different levels of like emotions, if that makes sense. And when you are weaving together your stories like this, you're using what you choose to switch to shape the emotional current of your comic. So yeah, it really depends on what you want to do, because if you keep things heightened all the time, people can kind of burn out, your audience can burn out. So you want to like let out the breath sometimes in your story and add some like more calm scenes. Or you can also add more calm scenes because you know that something bad is happening and you're creating like a dramatic irony kind of contrast where like you're having some characters who are having like a good time, and then they don't even know that the other characters are having a horrible time. It creates, you know, is a contrast. There's parallelism, there's contrast, there's all of those things are what you're deciding to do when you're cutting between stories. And all of it has to do with pace. And I think it's some of like the most artistic stuff you get to do is just choosing where you go to. And it really, really, really depends on like what you want your readers to feel. But it is a major way to control how they feel, because at the end of the day, usually there's going to be a set amount of scenes that need to be shown within a plot line, and deciding where to place them, how to pace them, and sometimes where to cut them is important. And yeah, that's all I can say on the matter. If you have more questions, you can leave them down below, and I can further delve into this if you would like. If not, thank you for watching. Tonight we're doing it. We're doing the commission stream. So if you want art done, you better head on over to our live stream tonight. We're going to be raising money for our dog who needs tooth surgery. So hopefully we can do it. Thank you so much for listening. Please remember to like and subscribe if you aren't already, because I put out videos every day, and you know, if you want to see most of them, you're being subscribed would help. All right. See you guys in the next one. Goodbye. I always wave. I hope you know I wave to you when I say that. I don't know. All right. Goodbye.